For years, we have been sold the hype, the shortcuts, and the diets that crumble the minute that life gets a little too stressful or a little too busy. No wonder fat loss feels borderline impossible. But it doesn't have to feel that way. I'm Noah Quezada, I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm a weight loss expert. Over the past decade and a half, I've been a quality control analyst for the supplement industry. I have coached hundreds of clients through their weight loss journey, and I've been featured in some of the top publications like Forbes and Business Insider. And today, I'm sharing some of the most important lessons that I've learned about weight loss so you don't have to waste any more time feeling stuck. This video is your shortcut. We're breaking down everything that actually works for simple, fast fat loss. Let's get into it. Lesson number one, it's not the diet, it's the calorie deficit. One of my clients, Sarah, was doing everything. Meal prepping, eating healthy, working out. She was all in, to say the least. So when the weight wasn't coming off, she was frustrated. She turned to me and said, I don't get it. I'm eating clean. What else do I need to do? So we dug into her habits, and sure enough, she was having a smoothie for breakfast. She was having a protein bar for a snack, a handful of nuts later on. Like everything that she was eating, it was quote unquote clean, but she was still consuming too many calories. And this is where it all clicked. Look, we don't really live in a world that supports weight loss. We actually probably live in a world that is designed to make us overeat. Think about it. Food corporations are incentivized to get us to buy more and eat more of their foods. But we live in a country that already produces too much food, so how do they compete? They make it cheaper, they make it crunchier, they make it tastier, they make it harder to resist. Once Sarah understood this, she started tracking her intake, staying within her budget. She was able to lose 12 pounds within 10 weeks. So here is the truth. You don't lose fat by eating quote unquote clean. You lose fat by consistently consuming fewer calories than you burn each day. The deficit matters more than the diet. Lesson number two, treat weight loss like a science experiment. There's a story that I love about these two pottery classes. They were both given the same assignment, which was to create the best pot possible. Each class was instructed differently. One class was instructed to make as many pots as possible, while the other class was instructed to make just the best pot possible. The class that was instructed to make the most amount of pots also made the best ones. Why? Because they were able to practice. They were able to learn, make mistakes. They were able to iterate their way to success. And weight loss works very similarly. One of my clients was really struggling to meet her morning workout routine. Instead of calling it a failure, we simply adjusted the time so that she'd work out during her lunch period instead, and that worked. Then she was able to layer in meal prepping and meeting her protein goals. And over the course of the next year, she was actually able to lose more than 30 pounds. And the difference, she stopped focusing on perfection and she started focusing on progress. So here's the lesson. You don't need the perfect plan. You need the reps. Experiment, adapt, and improve. Lesson number three, self-monitoring wins every time. Back in the day before I became a dietitian, I would try anything and everything. Cut out carbs, fasting, random supplements. I mean, you name it, I've probably tried it, to be honest with you. Even if you scroll back far enough on my Instagram feed, you'll probably see where I was talking about testing my blood for ketones because I was on the keto diet. But no matter what I was doing during this period of time, I never really felt nor I looked the way I really wanted to. The big turning point for me was when I really started paying attention. This is when I started actually tracking what I ate, tracking my sleep, tracking my workouts and my weight. This is where it started to make sense, right? I had a bigger picture. I had real tangible data. I was no longer guessing. I could see the patterns of, what was working and what wasn't working. And after coaching hundreds of clients, the one thing I can tell you is the people who track, even in a super simple way, oftentimes do better. It's not that it's magic or anything. It's that they're becoming more self-aware of what the patterns or the behaviors are. So I think the big lesson or takeaway here is if it matters to you, just track it, jot it down in your own way, your own fashion. Lesson four is to set realistic goals that are within a time frame. This is where we want to avoid that, I want to get in better shape, I want to lose weight. What does that even mean? Instead, we want clear time-bound goals, something like, hey, I want to lose 15 pounds in the next 12 weeks. Now we have a clear target, we've got a deadline, and a way to measure progress during this period of time. For example, one of my clients wants to lose 30 pounds by the end of this year. She was doing great, right on track, up until about, let's say, 1 or 2 months ago. And her weight loss started to plateau a little bit. Now, because she wasn't making progress towards this goal, this sent up some red flags for us. We had to look at her plan, look at the actions that she was taking, look at the behaviors, right? Adjust some things. And sure enough, when we did, she is right on track to hit her goal by the end of the year. So if there's a lesson here, it's if your goal isn't clear, it's going to be really difficult for you to stay focused. Clear goals equal clear actions. Lesson 5, you only have so long until the adaptations start to kick in. You can't diet forever. At some point, usually around that 8 to 12 week mark, your body starts pushing back. Hunger goes up, food focus increases, energy dips, and staying in a calorie deficit just gets harder and harder. It's not your fault. This is your body's way of protecting itself from starving, right? It's just biology. You add that to a world that is filled with super tasty foods. Yeah, no wonder that people crash out around that 3-month mark. This is why I suggest setting windows for fat loss. You take 6 to 12 weeks seriously, track hard, stay focused, then you take a break. You refeed, you maintain, you recover, and then when you're ready, you go again. The lesson here is you're not lazy. There are adaptations that are happening. Use shorter focused phases to avoid the weight loss and diet burnout. Lesson 6 is diet adherence is hard, and that's normal. Dieting is a form of controlled starvation. Right? Your body doesn't care that your goal is to lean out. It just knows that it's getting less food, and so it pushes back. You get hungrier, you think about food more often, energy dips and cravings go through the roof. Again, not a weakness, but just biology. This is where most people fall off, not because they're unmotivated, but rather because they don't realize how hard it actually is, especially over time. The ones that do succeed are those that plan for it, they keep meals simple, they manage their hunger, they don't rely on motivation, but rather they rely on systems. So the takeaway is it's supposed to be hard. But when you can expect it, you can prepare for it, then you can actually push through it. Lesson 7 is your food environment will make it harder. Highly processed food is everywhere. Drive-through, gas station, and the break room donuts that Debbie is bringing in every Thursday. Your environment is set up to make it so that you overeat. And it doesn't stop there. The family wants pizza on Tuesday. Your friends call for beers on Wednesday, right? It's constant. This isn't just about willpower. It's about how you set yourself up, right? If all that you have access to is high calorie, super tasty foods all day, every day, yeah, stick into a calorie deficit, virtually impossible. But one of the most reliable ways that you can stick to your plan is to cook a majority of your own meals, right? You know what's going in the food. You can keep it simple, but really what's important here is you can set your environment up to support your goals rather than to sabotage them. So the lesson here is, if you want to change your body, start by changing the food that you actually have access to. Lesson 8 is to lean on protein and fiber. Growing up, breakfast normally looked like some sort of Eggo waffles or a toaster strudel, like that was normal. But by the time I got to school, I found it that I was starving. Couldn't focus. I was normally just roaming the halls, digging for change and looking for a vending machine before lunch. At the time, I didn't realize it, but those meals really didn't have any staying power, right? There was no protein, there was no fiber. It was just fast carbs, sugars, and fats. It wasn't until I became a dietitian where all these things clicked, where I was like, oh yeah, protein and fiber, those help keep you full because they slow digestion, they send a signal to the brain that says, hey, I'm good, I don't need to eat anymore. Now, my family gets it too, right? They are having eggs and oatmeal or smoothies with protein powder and fruit. The same calories, but wildly, wildly different impacts. So the takeaways or the lesson here, if you will, is prioritize protein and fiber. They're going to help keep you full, focused, and consistent. Lesson 9 is to follow the plan, especially when you don't feel like it. I got 99 problems, and eating too much used to be one of them. Right? There's always going to be a reason to bail on the plan. You're tired, you had a stressful day at work, friends called for beers, and you want to go do that. And in the moment, every excuse is going to feel valid. You'll convince yourself that you should skip the gym today, or you should have that pizza instead of the planned meal you had. But here's the truth. The people that make real progress, they don't always feel like sticking to the plan, but they follow through anyways. So here's the solution. Expect that little voice in your head to show up. Know that it's coming. Walk through the situation and follow through anyways. So if you have a lesson or a takeaway here, it is that your plan works if you work it. Anticipate the excuses and follow through when it counts. Lesson 10 is know that it's not sustainable. The idea of forever is overwhelming, especially when it comes to dieting. No more cake? Never eating pizza with friends again? Never going out to your favorite restaurant? Yeah, that mindset will break you. And without a clear endpoint or goal, eventually you're gonna hit a wall and ask yourself, is this even worth it all? Here's the truth. Dieting isn't sustainable. You're strategically eating less food in order for you to lose body fat. That's not something that you can or should do forever. But when you understand that it's temporary, it makes it easier to push through. You're not giving up everything forever, but rather you're committing for a focused period of time to reach an end result. So the lesson or the takeaway here is fat loss phases should be short, they should be focused and intentional, and you should know when you're on and then know when you need to shift things. Lesson 11, get stronger, period. Ozempic butt and Ozempic face, those are like real terms now that we understand because we've watched people lose a ton of weight on these drugs and they just end up looking like Skeletor. Why? Because they lost muscle, not just body fat. When you focus solely on weight loss, you run the risk of losing the thing that gives your body shape, structure, and function, which is your lean muscle mass. That's why strength training is a non-negotiable. Lifting helps preserve your lean body tissue, boosts your metabolism, and just gives you shape overall. I've seen it in almost every client that lifts during a fat loss phase. They don't just shrink and get smaller. They actually build strength, they have more energy, they have more confidence. So I think the lesson or the takeaway here is don't focus solely on weight loss. Pay attention to those muscles because those are going to be the differentiating factor, especially in your long-term results. Lesson 12, don't shy away from discomfort. One of the most powerful quotes I heard was weight loss is like a consistent humming of discomfort. And it's so true. If you're committed to change, especially with fat loss, discomfort is part of the process. Hunger, sore, saying no when it's easier to say yes, that all comes with the territory. But that discomfort, it's temporary. And it's usually a signal that things are actually changing. Most people try and avoid it, thinking that this discomfort is meaning that they're doing something wrong, but it usually means you're on the right path. So the lesson or the takeaway here is don't avoid the discomfort. Expect it, lean into it. That's where the growth and the results happen. Lesson 13 is work on grounding yourself. I'm about 12 weeks into a dieting phase, and one of the unexpected benefits is I've become really in tune with some of my body's cues and signals. Hunger, fullness, energy dips, those really used to be blurred in the background, but when you're in a calorie deficit, they only get louder. And if you're not grounded, they'll run the show, right? It's really easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Managing stress, hunger, real life can make it easy for us to respond emotionally. Grabbing a snack or skipping a meal without even thinking about it. The key for me was understanding what my baseline was. What did it feel like when I was fed, I was calm, I was focused? Right now when things feel off, I can respond instead of react. So the key lesson or takeaway here is the more grounded you are, the more in control you will be. Learn to listen and respond to your body's cues without letting them boss you around. Lesson 14. Do things that you will thank yourself for later. Alarm goes off, you hit snooze 3 times, now you got 15 minutes to get out the door. You grab some coffee, you skip breakfast, and you head to work. You get there, someone brought in donuts, so you grab one. Wasn't satisfying, so you grab another. Lunch, drive-through. Dinner, out with coworkers because work was brutal. That's default mode, and that's really what keeps people stuck. Now let's flip it. It's Sunday. You prepared your breakfast. Lunch is packed. You have a workout scheduled after work. You don't have to think. You just have to follow the plan. By 7 p.m., you've hit all of your targets. You're satisfied. You can have that sigh of relief, right? And you're not scrambling. So the big lesson or the big takeaway here is set yourself up for success. Do things today that are going to make tomorrow easier. Lesson 15, keep it simple and easy. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people overcomplicating everything. They want to try and cook a new meal for every single meal. They want to jump from program to program, or it's a new year, new me, so let's change everything, right? But nothing ever really sticks under those conditions. But here's what does. Keeping things stupid simple. Same breakfast? Awesome. Same workout routine? Even better. You can plan your meals, you can prep, you can batch prep, but really what you can do is you can just repeat what works. The goal is to make things so easy and so automatic that it's actually harder not to stick with them. So again, the takeaways of the lesson here is simplicity wins. Build systems that run on autopilot so consistency feels effortless. Lesson 16 is make your goals real. There's a big difference between thinking about your goals and actually committing to them. Most people say, I want to lose weight. Cool, cool. Where's that written down? Where's the reminder when that alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m.? Or someone brings donuts into the office? Right? Writing down your goals makes them real. On paper, on your phone, or even a sticky note on your bathroom mirror. You can see it, you can reconnect with it, and you can actually act on it. You stop saying someday and you start showing up today. Right? This isn't about perfectionism, it's about presence. When your goals are right in front of you, it's harder to drift from them. It's easier to decide on the actions that you're taking to move the needle forward. The lesson or the takeaway here is don't leave your goals in your head. Put them down somewhere that you can actually see it. And remind yourself who you're becoming. Lesson 17 is actively seek out other forms of pleasure and dopamine. Food is one of our main sources of pleasure, right? It brings people together, it tastes amazing, and it just lights up our brain with feel-good chemicals. So when you're dieting, right, you're cutting back on going out to restaurants and skipping dessert and you're eating less in general, it's not just about those calories, but you're also dialing down one of our main sources of pleasure and dopamine. And if you don't replace it with something else, eventually, right, you're going to look for that relief in food again. At least that's what happens with me. So that's why I actively seek out other ways to get those like hits of pleasure. Things like going for a walk outside, calling a friend or a loved one, buying something small like a book or a t-shirt or something, or maybe even playing a video game, right? These might seem small and trivial, but they matter. The lesson or the takeaway here is if you remove food as the reward, you've got to replace it with something else, right? Find non-food related things that bring you joy and use them. Lesson 18, use the WOOP method to break the cycle. Now, have you ever felt like you're living in a Groundhog Day? You wake up in the morning and say, I want to lose weight. But then the day kind of slips by, don't really change anything, and then we end up going to bed just disappointed. Right? And the next day, same goal, same inaction, same result. Right? I used to get lost in the fantasy of the outcome, like how good it would feel to hit my goal. But then I'd never follow through until I found WOOP. This was a tool that really helped me get unstuck. WOOP stands for wish, what do you want? Outcome, why do you want it? Obstacle, what's going to get in the way of it? And then plan, how are we going to manage that? Now this is a tool that I use almost every day. It takes me 2 minutes and turns my vague intentions into real actions. So the lesson or the takeaway here is stop daydreaming. Use the WOOP method to bridge the gap between wanting and doing. Lesson 19, focus on the food groups. Yes, calories are going to drive weight loss, but they're not the only thing that matters. You can be in a deficit and eat nothing but protein bars and popcorn, but if your body's not getting what it actually needs, it's gonna feel it. Low energy, poor digestion, brain fog, they all add up, right? Once your calories are dialed in, you want to shift your focus to making sure you're getting good food quality. What this means is you want to be eating from the core food groups, your lean proteins, your whole grains, your fruits and vegetables, your low-fat dairy, and your beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds. These foods provide your body with what they need, right? Antioxidants, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, everything to make it perform its best. Right, so the takeaway here is calories are going to drive weight loss. Your food choice or food quality is going to support your health, and you really need both if you want to perform and feel your best. If you got something out of this video, then you might want to check out the exact system that I use with my clients and myself during fat loss phases. You can find that video right here.